Hello, and welcome to Consider the Source. In this series of conversations, we'll explore the kaleidoscopic range of influences that go into the dazzling spectacle of the opera stage. I'm so thrilled to be joined today by Mezzo-soprano Megan Marino, who will be singing Cherubino in this year's production of Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. Megan, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. It's so exciting to think about the ways in which all of the things that come into the invisible elements of performance can come out in this conversation. Let's start at the beginning. When you're preparing a role, where do you begin?
That depends. Sometimes it'll be the story that speaks to me directly and immediately, and sometimes it'll just be the score, the music that draws me in. And yeah, sometimes I just can't wait to dig in, and I'll lay the score on out, right up at the piano and just sit and play. And like in the case of Madama Butterfly, I wanted to dig into that thing so bad just because of all that beautiful, especially there's so much planing in it, and just the way that it all kind of rings up and down the octaves. I just wanted to play it. I just wanted to, dig into those different spots. So it just depends, In the case of Eugene Onegin or something like that, that's like the epic poem for sure is what drew me into that. And then of course, Tchaikovsky's score is really, really beautiful, and he does a masterful job of setting a lot of Pushkin's actual text verbatim, but for especially the moments and the characters that are not central to the story, oftentimes reading that story ahead of time before even cracking the score is something that really informs how then when I go to the score, how I'll interpret that character. So give it a little extra and answer some questions for me and help me to interpret the score in a certain way.
Yeah, have there been moments of surprising discoveries that you found in sort of unexpected places as you worked your way into a character or a score?
Yeah, well, for sure. Actually, what I'm thinking of now is Marriage of Figaro, because at this point I've studied and almost just about to have sung every single female role in that show, with the exception of Countess Almaviva or Rosina. But that's a role. Rosina is a role that I've sung so many times in Barber of Seville. And so the story that comes in the Beaumarchais trilogy, the first of the three stories, and Marriage of Figaro being the second. So as I've been really delving into Marriage of Figaro, and I was actually slated to sing Susanna of all things in this show as well, seeing the way that Figaro and Rosina's relationship had grown over the years between when we saw them last in Barber of Seville to now seeing them in Marriage of Figaro, and to see now how Susanna has also been brought into the mix, and so it's this sweet couple that's caring for and looking out for sweet dear Rosina. It's interesting to think about how Figaro and Rosina's relationship, that has informed me, that's informed how I view Figaro and Rosina's relationship a little bit now, visiting Barber of Seville, to see how that dynamic between the two of them, and to really know those conversations intimately now in Nozze, and to see that dynamic between the two of them, that informed me and helped me to take a little bit of that character and dynamic back to Figaro and Rosina's interactions before she becomes the Countess. Yeah. It's really, yeah, totally. All of those nuggets of discovery are really cool.
Have there been moments where you've, as a spectator, seen a role, maybe especially a role that you're very familiar with, seen it performed in a way that that kind of transformed something about it for you? It's interesting to think about the perspective both as like performer and spectator.
Actually, I'm thinking of a Bohème that I saw years ago, where the very first moments of I love you, oh my God, instant whatever, was actually played a touch more coy and even more lust, being in lust than in love. And that was one of the most truthful interpretations of that scene that I've ever seen. And it was like both of the actors or singing actors that were playing Mimi and Rodolfo had they just their dynamic was just, you know, I mean, and so like the love at first sight thing, sure, we that happened, but it was just different and more and a little more playful and genuine in that kind of like almost as if thinking back to college days, like see the cute guy at the bar, you know, across the way and like sparks, you know, sparks, but it's not like love at first sight. I mean, you don't know in that moment when you see them and you're like, hey, interesting, that you're going to be with them and have some, you know, epic romance.
Yeah,
You know?
those nuances. I think like the like love stories, like capital L, capital S love stories and murders tend to get a lot of play, but like so many of the nuances of the relationships, whether they're different like elements of relationships like love stories or whether they're different relationships altogether like friendships, like are just as richly developed in so many of these stories, even if they don't necessarily get the same like real estate in the synopsis, you know?
Totally. And I think, you know, again, it just that goes back to who's cast together to play these roles, if they feel safe to go like as close to the line, maybe even like stand on it directly, like tempt fate, you know, with that person, you know, and really, really just go to the place where they lose themselves and they just are their character. I think a lot of that, you know, has to do with, you know, how all those dynamics work out have to do with just the person, the actual personnel, and and not just the people on stage, but also like the entire crew of folks that are helping to assemble the production, you know, whether it's the person who's the casting director at the very beginning to uh, the way that, you know, you're choreographed to just to touch someone, you know, can say so much. And if you're comfortable with those people and you're in a group of people who are so willing to go there, then that story is going to be that much more genuine, you know, and we're not going to be relying on stock gestures or, you know, just going to what the easy route path of least resistance is, maybe, you know, and really digging in and being truthful and not judgy while being our characters.
I mean, it's one of the exciting things about opera that like we get to both as audience members and as performers, like re-experience these roles, these stories, these worlds so many different times in the eyes of so many different creators throughout our lives. Like, have there been ways in which any of the roles in Marriage of Figaro or any role has changed for you over the course of time?
Oh, for sure. Well, Rosina has changed for me. It has evolved. I think like I first sang, it was a cut down in English version, but still nonetheless was really, really did my first learning this role, really studying it and getting it into my arsenal. Everybody says that this is going to be something I do. Okay, I may as well try it. Rosina in 2010. It was in 2010. And since that, every single season I've sung at least one to three Rosinas. And that just evolved. She has evolved for me so much. She keeps me so honest, uh, especially vocally. I mean, can you imagine all the changes that, especially women's bodies go through, you know, over the course of our lives? Every 5 years, there's a little bit of a hormone shift that happens. So I have been with Rosina since 2010, and it is now almost, or it's not almost, it is 2021.
No, I think they're so
Yeah.
powerful as audience members to feel those discoveries happening, especially, you know, I mean, I think the Marriage of Figaro roles are so interesting because they have these diverse lives, whether as part of the Beaumarchais trilogy, as part of the Mozart da Ponte trilogy, in which there's this sort of clustering of ideas and styles. And I mean, it's hard not to read those together. So I wonder how those inform, you know, your approach to Cherubino, knowing Rosina so well from Barber, knowing all the roles from different perspectives.
Yeah, no, Cherubino is just, he's, okay. So he has been raised in a place of extreme privilege. He's been sent there to learn how to be more privileged. You know what I mean? To like mimic this other guy who's the most privileged in the house. And so in a way, he's a bit of a victim of the societal construct around him, like telling him who he has to be and what he is. But within all of that surrounding him, yeah, he has certain behaviors and things that he does where as a modern woman looking at him, I'm like, oh my God, right? Is that okay? Can I say that? Can you beat me? He has these moments of just pure love, and there is so much innocence inside him, and so much loyalty and sweetness about the way that he approaches not just the Countess. The Countess is like, she's on this pedestal, you know, she's like this perfect, this is what I emulate, you know, the most beautiful woman, like perfect thing, you know. But even with Susanna, you know, he has a bit of that with her, and I just think it's so sweet the way that both of those women too, they're not mean with him, you know, they don't dismiss him. They encourage him to be more gentle and more loving and playful, you know. I don't, whether or not that's on purpose or if I'm reading like too far into it now, knowing Rosina and Susanna so well from that perspective, but he's just all heart. And especially those scenes with Susanna and the Countess. Actually, my very favorite moment is when he's about to jump out the window and like, both of them are just like don't know what to do, and like extreme panic, and the stakes are so high, but it's also just like one of those, like, you know, like a pigeon flying into a window moment, you know, just like, what am I doing now? I love how even in this, like, it's super high stakes. I mean, no doubt that the Count will kill him or like inflict like really, really bad bodily harm on him if he discovers him in his wife's closet. You know what I mean? Like, no joke, the stakes are very, very high. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, having read the score from like, or libretto really, but like from the perspective of multiple people in this, you know, that the Count, like, he is seeing red. He will kill that kid, or he will inflict supreme bodily harm upon him. Like, everybody knows that, you know, and it's not going to just be him. It's also going to be like, it's going to be taken out on his wife. I mean, we don't ever see that much in Marriage of Figaro, but come on. Think about like those societies at that time and what the position that women were in, but in particular, a woman who basically, when you look back at the history of the story, even that power dynamic has been so like, save me, man, take me out of here. Or at least that's how he really views it. I'm the savior, I'm in charge. Like, this is mine.
Yeah.
You know? And if this misbehaves, like, you know, when we meet him and when we've gotten to Marriage of Figaro, he's a lot of his entitlements and things that we find very charming in ways, and in Marriage or in Barber of Seville have developed into some real problems that have gone unchecked. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so in that moment where they're like, where she is like getting him out of, sorry, that was so heavy, right? But in that moment where she is like, right, aprite presto, aprite la Susanna, sortite, and she's, you know, she's like rattling the cage, you know, like rattling the closet, but like, that is literally like, get out, this is your friend, this is me, it's me, get out, open, you know, we have 30 seconds to get you out of here, you know, because that guy is gonna kill you, you know, but still in that moment, like, they're like two little chickens, like, running around like crazy. The stakes could not be higher, and the two of them are just like boopy bopping, like, you know, having this like super charming delightful moment that informs their relationship. You know, it's like this, I don't know, it's just a really silly, I love it.
I mean, so much of it seems to me like both in Barber of Seville and Marriage of Figaro, there's this like it's able to be so funny and so virtuosic because there's this like very firm core beneath it, and so you feel that whole scope. Like it's amazing.
Right. Well, what you just then put me on another, gave me some more idea, is how many times have we seen a comedy, in particular, how many times have we seen Barber of Seville and Marriage of Figaro, where either they've chosen to or the director has asked them to like play funny, to play to the audience, play for laughs, like whether it's consciously or unconsciously, whatever, but the characters, the people on stage, and they know they're funny, you know, and they're not, and that to me like makes it less poignant in so many different ways. Like what some of our greatest comedians just throughout time, they're funny because it is so real to them. It is so serious, you know, they take themselves so seriously. And when you see people playing their scenes and their characters just as they are, you know, and taking themselves very seriously, when those moments happen that are just ridiculous, it makes them that much more ridiculous, you know, and also more truthful, because nobody's like looking at the audience being like, are they funny? You know, I mean, if that happens, the only person who is allowed to do that in Marriage of Figaro or Barber of Seville is Figaro, you know. If all that moment is to happen, the only person who is allowed to have that moment is Figaro. He's the only one who breaks the fourth wall. In both of the in both of the shows, he's the only character who breaks the fourth wall and speaks directly to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, even that sense of like sort of meta referentiality and like manipulating of like the form itself. I mean, I've been amazed in revisiting the Beaumarchais. Like it feels, I mean, of course it's conditioned by loving the musical iterations that follow it, but like it already feels like music. I mean, his musicianship is so evident in the plays themselves, and so it feels like because it is constructed that way, it all has that life built into it, you know?
Oh, totally. No, but it's one of, I mean, for my money, it's one of the most perfect operas, and that's why it's been part of the canon for so long, because it's so well constructed, and there's so many different readings that you can give on every single character.
Yeah. Do you remember your first what? Do you remember your first encounter with it? You must have had so many.
With Marriage of Figaro. Yeah. My very first encounter with Marriage of Figaro was in my undergrad. I sang, well, one of my very first arias my teacher gave me in my undergrad, who's my teacher, life mentor, who she actually just passed away in April, Ellen Chickering, the most amazing. She came to visit me in Santa Fe. She made a traverse the country to come see me at the Page in Zalame.
Yes.
When my last 2015, my very last young artist program. Yeah, so the very first aria she gave me was Non so più. Well, yeah, and she was like, oh, we just need to, you know, get this out of the way and start learning this, because this is what you are, this is what you're going to be. You're going to be singing this role your whole life. So there was that, and then she gave me a scene for opera workshop where we did the Schirmer English translation. I think it might be, is it Ruth and Thomas Martin in that one?
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, we did the Schirmer English, and we did like a big chunk of Act 1 of Marriage of Figaro, and she assigned different people to do different scenes, and so I did the Susanna Cherubino scene, and yeah, where she, you know, where he's stealing the ribbon, and
yeah,
you know, then he sings. Then you break into Non so più, you know. It was my shining moment, and it was just so fun. And I had already played a pants role before, or trouser role, excuse me. Amal in the Night Visitors was my very first operatic role. And that should have, I think, been an indication from the beginning. Like, Meg, get used to playing trouser roles, because you are children and magical creatures, you know, and quirky sidekicks. Yeah, so that was my first experience with Marriage of Figaro, and then since then, like, I mean, as young artist programs and also school before young artist programs went by, I did multiple, like all the rest of Cherubino's scenes, and even like most of Susanna's scenes as well, because there was a time when it was like, what are you? I don't know, you know. I'm just a dash soprano of some kind, you know, in like the old school sense before the mezzo-soprano voice type became an official thing, I think. Right? What do you call that? But yeah, so that was my first experience with Marriage of Figaro. And now this will be my very first scheduled performance in the summer of 2021 at the Santa Fe Opera. I will be 39 years old. I'm going to tell everybody my age. You should not be ashamed. It takes a long time. And yeah, we earn these years. We earn our place. So I'm 39 years old, and it will be my very first scheduled performance of Cherubino and Marriage of Figaro. And yeah, I've covered it a gazillion times. So
I know I speak for everyone when I say that. Cannot wait. It's so exciting to see. And the roles that sort of like get that long gestation period, it's so exciting to like have their full, you know, fledged.
Dude, I even learned in saying Marcellina before I sang Cherubino.
It's so great. I mean, I think like, again, like that, like, the way in which like knowing all those different dimensions can come into a character. It's so exciting. What was your first the first op you loved?
Bohème. I say so quickly, Bohème. Yeah, no, it's such a story, and the music is so beautiful, and yeah, unashamed to say, very opera that I fell head over heels for was Bohème. And I can sing most of it in different octaves, of course, because, you know, most characters, most portions of most things. I just love it. I think it's beautiful. I like to play certain portions of it as well. You know,
offers so many different dimensions on sort of relationships, and yeah, it's and it's always. Do you remember your first encounter with it in the theater, where that how that happened? Since we're all thinking about like what it means to be back in these spaces after a long gap.
To actually be like to be in the theater as an audience member
or as a performer, either one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know why audience member right now is coming to me as the thing, but I just getting to be in communion with that many people who are all there to be part of the same thing and contribute in their own way, whether it's to like be there to support and to witness as an audience member, or, you know, play in the pit, or to be calling the show, whatever. Everybody doing their little part to do this one thing, you know. I just think that's just so special. And every time that I'm in an audience watching, like that, I have that realization at some point, and it's not like on purpose, like, oh, think about all the different people and all the different things. It's literally, there will be a moment during the show where something like super, like either super mundane or extraordinary, like, how the hell did they do that, happens. And I have that, like, you think about, you know, everybody who's making it happen right now so that we can all be here to share in this moment, you know, even down to, you know, in the case of Santa Fe, like who was in the kitchen at the canteen earlier in the day, who like helped to make whatever the meal was that was on the menu, that helped to fuel the artists, to help to get them to the stage after X amount of rehearsal.
Thinking about like the sort of sacredness of these sort of spaces that allow for this communion, right? Like that the theater like enables this communion. And that when you have this outdoor component to it, where you get sort of nature as stage manager, it adds that additional, richness. And of course, thinking forward with great longing to the summer in Santa Fe, do you have any Santa Fe opera moments where you that you got that perfect sort of confluence of performance and nature and any great, yeah.
Okay, well, the obvious, like, I mean, like, if we believe in a greater power, that greater power has just painted the most gorgeous sky that you could have never even imagined was possible. That those moments happened like innumerable during the course of the summer at Santa Fe. So yes to all of that portion of the collaboration between, theater and nature coming together, but also the night during Dr. Atomic, when they I'm so tickled about it. When they sent the stagehands out with the squeegee brooms to it was raining so hard and it was like sideways and up. These stages come out like between scenes while the orchestra is playing this beautiful meditative interlude, and that we're just watching them squeegee, and the next person to come out and say their first line, Dan Okulich, is says something about the weather, and the whole theater lost it. It was so good. It was the best. It was so much of that moment also, we got to give credit where credit is due. Dan Okulich, very smart individual, and he saw that was teed up so perfectly for him, and he was like, all right. So good. It was so good. Oh man. Yeah. I think about that. I think about one of the final dress rehearsals that I experienced as a young artist in Oscar. Oh wait, maybe it wasn't a final dress rehearsal. Maybe it was that in 2013? Oh, whatever. But we were in one of the final dress rehearsals for it. And no, it was a final dress rehearsal because people were there was an invited audience that was there. And there was a thunderstorm that was epic happening out. And it was, people could see it, huge lightning strikes happening before they closed the back of the stage for helping to protect us. And then there was all of this scaffolding that was on the stage. It was all metal. So they ended up having, the audience was starting to huddle, closer and closer to the center of the theater. And we were all like, are they going to call it? I don't know. Oh my God, this is amazing. They rarely ever call it. And we were all it was like watching a sporting event, being back there in women's dressing room, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh. And half of the very sprightly, trouser roll type mezzos were all like, God, I brought my galoshes. Let's go jump in the puddles. We're gonna make this work. But they ended up taking a pacing break for maybe 5-10 minutes when they were the lightning came a little close. But it's so cool. I love it. Magic of theater,
Yeah. It's
the elements. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think it just the sense of anticipation just grows more and more. On the subject of Santa Fe, you've been lucky to spend a lot of time there. We've been lucky to have you there. What do you want to do first when you get back?
Okay. I have a list. I have a list of a few dining establishments that I would like to enjoy their food once again. I have 10,000 Waves is also speaking to me. I mean, it's not Santa Fe, but it's, halfway between there and Colorado. Ojo Caliente feels like a good idea. Also, there is a myriad of state and national parks, within spitting distance of Santa Fe, New Mexico, or just even in Santa Fe. So I'm looking forward to having my dog, or dogs plural, depends. My husband, he's good. He's at another festival, so he can have one of them and I'll have the other. But looking forward to having the dog and just going out and enjoying being in the Rocky Mountains, and I mean, it's such a beautiful, to me, being in the mountains is one of the most beautiful sacred nature spaces. Yeah, that's exciting to me. But with the COVID restrictions for whatever's going to happen in town, I'm fully prepared to pivot, and instead of dining in at establishments, I will hit up their curbside pickup or drive through Whitwell, and support the local businesses, because that is important. And yeah, nature, really just getting outside is one of my favorite things about that area of the world, especially in the summer. It's like 102 degrees, but it feels like it's 85 because it's so arid. What?
Not magic.
Yeah, really. Yeah, the mountain magic really is what I'm after. Most after.
I know I speak for everyone, Megan, when I say thank you so much for having this conversation today. I cannot wait to hear you sing and to see you all working together on that beautiful stage. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny. This has been really, really wonderful. And I think if anybody can pivot and figure this out for the summer, the Santa Fe Opera can do it. They have been in the elements from the moment that they were created. You know, they know, they'll be able to do it. I have no doubt.
So great. Thanks.